So we can finish to the end, but I think the point has been made. So the point is that liberal arts creates curiosity, creates a desire to learn, and a desire to discover more about this world, because the more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know anything. And that creates a curiosity, a hunger to fill in the gaps. And it's a endless race, but it's an enjoyable race if you are curious. So this kind of hunger, I don't think the Japanese educational system instills with the Japanese people. The system has been designed to be effective, to be easily tested, and easily reproducible. Doesn't grow independent thinkers. It grows people who have a certain skill that can be easily graded and tested and measured against. And I think it's ultimately lethal, because it kills creativity, and it kills the skills to actually deal with daily life. So people will be focused on doing their task, bring back the money, but they don't have the skills to actually deal with their lives, and that builds people who will lose the connectivity with each other, and a society that is not proactively trying to make a difference in the world. And
why that university graduates spend a lot of time for critical thinking?
Why? To become independent thinkers. I mean, that's...
No, why they spend so many hours?
Who? In Europe?
No, in Japan. Like, for example, Globes, they spend a lot of hours.
To critical thinking. Because it's not part of the educational system. At all in Japan. People do not teach critical thinking. People actually teach to listen to your senpai, to listen to your teacher, to listen to your parents. And not to question them, but to just basically follow on their advice, on what they're telling you. So they do not learn how to classify information that they receive, and they don't really grow up as thinkers. They just absorb the information that is being spoon-fed to them, and never prioritize or create their own worldview, which is, I believe, you get a perception that you get from reading Nikkei Shimbun and from reading other Japanese news sources. Is this really true? Or am I actually seeing something through the eyes of somebody else? That awareness, the fact that it's difficult to judge whether something is true or not true, whether it's fake news or real news, whether somebody has a stake in telling you or making you believe something. This critical thinking is very important to actually navigate yourself through this world where information is just everywhere. So question everything around you, question what you learn, question anything, and become an independent thinker. That will be very important, because if you're not engaged in critical thinking, then you will, and you think exactly as you've been taught, then you will be excellent at kukiyomeru, at reading the air, because it's common sense. It's what you've been taught. That's what you know about Japanese society. But common sense doesn't exist outside of Japan. It only exists inside Japan. So critical thinking is very important, not only to question Japan, but also to become more aware of the fact that the reality outside of Japan is different. Next one. Less what and more why. That basically goes back to the educational system, where we learn to absorb a lot of information. We have excellent skills in Japan about reading and writing, for example, about basic calculus, basic math skills. Japan is far beyond anybody else, but those are skills, like hard skills that have been taught and can be reproduced easily. But there is also this why question. So why are things that the way that they are? What kind of elements were crucial in the things like this to happen? Like, for example, why did Napoleon come to power in France? Or why do we have this kind of system? Why did we actually decide to separate between the judicial power, the political power, and the police power? Why is that important? That those why questions, you can know. Okay, so there is this principle of trias politica, but why is that important? Why does this come into existence? What are we trying to achieve with that? So this why question, I think, is very important, and it's that there is more focus on what, because that can be tested in Japan. It can be tested when we enter university. But the why question is much more interesting. So why is a squared plus b squared equals c squared? Why Pythagoras is true? We can anybody can remember that, right? But if you can actually show why that is true, then you know much more. You know so much more than just the formula. But nobody will test you on how to derive the law of Pythagoras. Therefore, it's not being taught. Right? So that's what I mean with less what, more why. And it's kind of related to liberal arts, I think. Right? Okay. Different stages, gives them freedom and gives them context. Looks at practical life and supports them in practical life, not just supports them in being able to pass a test, but to actually live your daily life and put everything in context. So
small student, many teachers.
Oh, yeah. No, that's true. Like in my niece's case, I think, like, for example, in Japan, it's not rare that you have classes with 40, 50 students, right?
Before.
One before. But like in my niece's case, I think there's about 25 students max.
Who's going to pay money for them?
The state, government. Yeah. So we have the teacher salaries are not that good, admittedly, but I don't think that there are many classes these days where there are more than 25 students.
And also age is mixed.
Yes.
Why?
Because actually it gives the opportunity for kids to not only become passive learners, but also active teachers, so that they become more aware of and better at, because the capacity to teach is actually creates a better understanding, and it also gives you a different role. So it actually encourages people.
Oh, I'm talking about mixing ages.
Yeah, mixing ages. So they do that on purpose. So they let kids get into a class which is not all the same age, but also actually they're elder children, and those elder children are going to teach you. And later on, as you grow, you stay in this class, but you will actually teach the younger children. So it's actually, they created an environment where people are teaching themselves and are not completely relying on the teacher, but they actually encourage kids to teach other kids, to engage with them, and to learn from each other.
Is it popular in Dutch?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
But I think it's very healthy, especially in Japan with the current generation of teachers.
That education makes diversity, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. Right. But this is actually, I never had this kind of education. But it's getting, it existed when I was in, but I think a lot of parents were still a little bit skeptic about it, and not willing to send their kids to that school, because what kind of education system is that, where kids more or less determine what they are doing and things like that? They didn't feel comfortable with that. But
that education system is, I think it's very good, but very, very effective, but not efficiently, because it takes much more cost.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that it costs more. It also requires much more flexibility and creativity of the teachers to deal with a certain situation. Because it's easier, of course, if you just set the program every day. You set the agenda. So now we do this and that and that and that. It's very easy. It's measurable. Like for me, I remember when I was in school, there was this roster, and like every Monday between 8:30 and 10, we would do Dutch language skills. Then we do maths, and then we do biology, and everything was predetermined and set, and the teacher just followed the schedule every day, and we do this the whole year, and then you go to the next class. End of story.
Whenever they're going to teach physics, they're going to teach chemical. Class is separate,
right?
By age.
By age, or by people who know, also by interest, or who wants to take chemistry, for example, or it's really like, okay, so we're going to shuffle and put kids here and there, or today you can.
Do you have exam?
At